Hi everyone and welcome to Fusion 360 Monthly Challenge 2019. Joining the challenge is very easy. All you have to do is forward your full name, school or company name together with your Fusion 360 email to autodeskcommunityphilippines@gmail.com. Welcome to another Fusion 360 Monthly Challenge. We are in the month of November, and from here our journey with assembly creation begins. Let's start slowly with this simple assembly. So here we have three components. Let's head to Fusion 360 and create a new design. There are multiple ways to create an assembly. I'll be showing you the first type, which is heading to our main file. From here, I'm going to right-click and select New Component. Let me grab our 2D challenge. For organization, I will name this component as base, this one to be matcher, and this one to be pin. Let's say that if we assemble these components together, first we will grab our base and place it on a flat surface like a table, and then we will insert our matcher and then insert our pin. With that in mind, let's first create our base. Let's head back to Fusion 360. To rename a component, simply left-click and left-click once more, naming this to base. In addition, if I create a new design, this is also considered as a component. And for this challenge, here we are creating a sub-assembly. Treat this as the parent component and the base, pin, and matcher to be its child components. And since we have already identified our components, in addition, we can create it right away. Let me show you another method of creating a component. So I'm going up to Assemble and select New Component. So definitely this will be an empty component. Let's name this as Matcher. The parent, I'm going to deselect this and select our unsaved file. And here we have the option to activate. Let me show you what activate means. I'm going to hit OK. So here, notice this black dot on the right of our component. This means whenever you see this black dot, our component is active. In addition, whenever you make a certain revision or edit to a component, it is a must that you activate that component. So say we will be creating our base. So this means we have to activate our base before performing a specific task, let's say sketching and then extruding. Let's create our final component. So heading to unsaved this time, right-click, selecting New Component, left-click and left-click once more to rename this, keying or typing pin. Hitting enter. We will start out creating our base. So I'm going to activate this. Let's now enter sketch mode. I'm going to hit R for rectangle. And let's sketch on our XZ plane. Now, if you have watched our previous tutorials, I always give emphasis on placing our origin at the center of our model. So let's head to Feature Options, change our rectangle to Center Rectangle. Let's drop our center point here at the origin. Notice our dimension field on the left is highlighted, which means it is active. I'm going to key in 100, hitting Tab, keying in 150, and hit Enter. Let's add the hole here as well. So grabbing our circle, hitting C, let's create our circle here. Diameter to be 30. Hitting enter. Let's grab our horizontal constraint. Select our center point and our origin, aligning this horizontally. And finally, hitting D for dimension, selecting this vertical line and our center point. Let's place our dimension here. Left click, key in 37.5, hitting enter. Let's now turn this 2D sketch into 3D by hitting E on our keyboard, which is the shortcut for extrude, selecting this profile. Once more, another good practice is making things symmetrical. Let's pull this arrow up. And for measurement, let's change this to whole length, and I want the thickness to be 30. Operation new body, and let's hit OK. Let's now add the square feature here. So selecting this face, hitting R for rectangle. Create the rectangle here. Dimension to be 50, hitting tab, 50 once more, hitting enter. Moving forward, let's now align the midpoint of this line and the midpoint of our edge. So I'm heading up to coincident, holding shift on my keyboard to locate the midpoint. So here it is, left click, heading to this vertical edge, locating our midpoint. Here it is, holding shift and left click. Let's now grab our extrude tool, hitting E, selecting this profile. Let's pull this arrow up. Recall that the thickness here is 30. So this one is 30 once more. Operation to be joined and hit OK. Before we wrap things up, let's add fillets to our sharp edges. Hitting F on my keyboard to grab fillet. Let's select this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. The value to be 5. Selecting OK. Hitting F once more. Making sure under window selection is enabled. Heading back to our model, left click and hold to create a window selection, release, and for the radius, I'm going to key in 1 and hit OK. Congratulations for completing our first component. From here, because we're already done with base, heading back to our main assembly and activating this. Join me in the next lesson as we create our matcher and pin.